Boom, we are live. Friday evening, look at that. 9:05, it's only 5 minutes after. We're getting on time these days, eh? It's a beautiful thing. Hope everybody is well, safe, warm. We are having a little warm patch here in Montreal, I guess the northeast of Canada, for once, wherever you guys are tuning in from. All the Californians, we are jealous, but we'll take the close to zero. It's as good as it gets. So this evening, guys, we've got a great one. These guys I want to have on forever. Yeah, big fan of their beers for a while. Packaging is phenomenal, so I'm super excited to get into it. So you know what? I'm just gonna get right into the game here. Okay, we're at 48. What's good, y'all? This is C Certified Brewhead, and welcome to episode 48 of Beer Not Just the Podcast Quarantine Edition Adjunct Series. This evening, we are talking with a brewery that I have never actually been to, which is not. I don't know why. It's one of those things. You know how you go to places all the time and sometimes you just miss something and there's no real reason why not. I'm trying to do my best to make up for it this evening. Mate, I'm going to bring him right on in. We have Callum from Halo Brewery in Toronto. There he is. Welcome, bro.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. Good. Thank you so much for hanging out. This is great. Man, been wanting to...
Thanks for having me.
Genuine pleasure, man. Like I was saying, for whatever, you know what I'm like, it's super weird to me. Every time I tell people I haven't been to Halo, and they're like, what? People always can't believe it, and neither can I, to be honest. There's not much of an excuse, but every time I go to Bar Hop or Verst or any of those places and I see your stuff, I always grab it. Been impressed with your stuff for years. Your branding is exceptional. I mean, look at this stuff. It's crazy. It's so good. So, man, appreciate you hanging out. I'm really looking forward to hearing the story. So, shall we bust into this bad boy right now?
Yeah, let's do it.
So, this one is called Magic Missile. It is a dry hopped pale ale, 5.5%. Oh, no, I thought I said collab. Nice. What did he tell us about this one, man?
So, yeah, I mean, this is as close as it gets to what we would call a flagship for us. This is our dry hop pale ale. This was one of the first beers I ever made as a home brewer. Right. It goes back many years for me. And it's evolved a lot over that time. But what you could call it at this point in its life is it's sort of in the New England style direction. It's hazy, juicy. It has my favorite hop in it, Galaxy.
Yes.
And it's all about sort of just pushing that like sort of jungle fruit, passion fruit, like tropical direction.
Kind of thing. Yeah, I'm getting that heaps on the nose. Okay. Well, you just go straight from the can. That's gangsta. Okay, I respect that. I respect it.
I'll pour it.
Yeah, man. That's okay. You didn't have to. I like it. I don't really see. I feel like brewers are pretty chill with the can versus glass thing. It's not that serious. Cheers, bro. Lovely, super smooth, soft. Is it all Galaxy?
There's some Citra in there. Okay. A little bit of Centennial, just sort of to balance it a bit. I find that if you just use like straight up Citra or straight up Galaxy, you just get a lot of round fruit flavor without sort of a little punch of citrus or something to sort of grasp onto the tongue instead of just being this like smooth slosh.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. So yeah, just balancing it out a bit with some citrus, with some other hops there. So yeah.
Definitely getting that citrus. I know exactly what you mean there. The super soft is like, it's almost like a subtle, like the pithiness in there.
Yeah. So the pithiness, I mean, there's a citrus or acid element to balance it, but pithiness is actually mostly from polyphenols.
Okay.
And so polyphenols are basically like they're the larger category which include tannins, but they tend to be much smaller molecules. They're like 6 carbon rings, many of them. That's why phenols are the benzene rings, and then polyphenols are many of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway.
Okay. No, this is good, man. Please do. This is fun.
But yeah, like when you bite into a citrus fruit and you get the pith in your mouth, like that is like polyphenol city, right? Like that's
what it is.
That pithiness.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that, particularly the relationship to tannins and stuff. That's super cool. I hadn't heard that, but that makes sense. In that comes from which particular hop do you think would give it the that pithiness?
All hops.
All of them
will do that. It really is a matter of how you treat the hops and how you dry hop it.
Right.
So like hops impart bitterness in multiple ways. IBUs are the most well known, which is just the isoalpha acids.
Okay.
Or at least that's in the literature. There's a lot of things have been learned in the last maybe decade or so. Use are coming from, and isoalpha acids are part of the picture, but there are other things.
Okay.
And the pithiness is almost like its own category. It's not even associated with IBUs
at all. Okay. Yeah, because it's almost like that. I guess it is separate because it's a sort of a bitterness. I could be argued that it is. I imagine, at least in that taste.
I call it astringency. Yeah, astringency is different from bitterness.
There you go.
But they're very closely related.
Without getting too crazy, can you? Is there like a simple way to break down the difference between bitterness and astringency?
I would say the closest, like I would know how to describe astringency better than bitterness. Astringency is like sucking on a tea bag. That's the easiest way. Like think tea, but like tea leaves or dried out plant matter, sort of like that dryness on the back of the tongue that sort of stretches the palate or tauts the palate. That would be what I call astringency. Bitterness is more of like there's a dryingness to it, but it's the opposite of sweet. I don't know how else really to describe it.
That's a really good one. That tea, particularly like that real green tea kind of like leaf thing that just dries your whole mouth out, but still leaves that. It's like a similar. It's like you're right. I thought it was kind of a synonym, to be honest. I thought it was sort of like just a nicer way. Astringency is a nicer way to say it, but the tea comparison makes sense for sure. I'm almost getting tea vibes from this now you mention it, unless I'm just sort of like I'm kind of like losing my mind within it, but I can like almost like a
tea on the brain.
Tea on the brain. It's almost like a peach tea or something.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has a lot of peach from a bit from the hops, definitely from the yeast. We use Vermont ale yeast for pretty much all of our pale ales, IPAs, IPAs, etc.
Gotcha.
And it gives off huge peach flavors. So.
Which is dope. Okay, I love it, man. This is great. This is a super good. I haven't had this one before, so I was stoked to try it. This is great. So I can see that this would be a nice, crushable, approachable, because it's not like over the top. I feel like it's super rounded, extremely soft. The mouthfeel is insane. This is I can definitely see this being like a solid flagship to really draw people in, particularly to be like, oh, all right, we can make this pale ale sort of complex yet super approachable, and then they're more interested in the rest. Yeah,
it's to introduce hops without the bitter hop character, right? Like most people think hops, it's bitter. No, that's not the case. Not the case.
Do you think that people still think that about hops, being that we're in the world of the New England IPA right now?
I mean, I think less so, but we certainly still get people who come into the tap room and you mention hops and they freak out. Saying, oh God, bitter. It's like, no, wait, we can show you.
Yeah, I love that. I found that the conversion for gateway people who kind of say that about hops or just, oh, I don't really like beer. Give them a New England, and I feel like it blows people's minds more than any style that I've ever sort of come across. I think for that reason, because they have those assumptions about hops, and then they taste this glorious, smooth thing that doesn't look like any of the beer they've ever seen in their life, and they trip out. I'm like, okay, all right, it's a solid one to have for like a flagship, man. It's a good move. Got a quick comment, Philippe Brousseau out there in Quebec City. What's up, Bracelet? What's up? How are you guys, mate? I am great, Phil. I hope everything is good out there, bro. So I didn't tell you, we're going to get you get a few comments and stuff because we're live. People come through and they might have questions and stuff. So because we haven't had you on before, man. Hey?
I'm doing well as well.
It's a beautiful thing. Dude, yeah, I'd love to get your beer history, and then we'll lead into the history of the brewery itself.
Sure.
Yeah, I'd love to know.
So, I have no formal education in brewing. I'm completely self-taught. I started off with a friend home brewing, and we were sitting down for dim sum one afternoon, and we're just like, there's not a whole lot of the beers we want to drink available these days, like through the LCBO, through the beer store. It was very limited, and this was like almost a decade ago at this point.
Right.
So Bellwoods, Blood Brothers, all of the Toronto craft breweries that are now sort of, they're there, we're not there. Right. And we were really into like Belgian beers and stuff like that. And so we just decided, okay, grab some like basic equipment and from scratch, just start brewing. Right. And make a point of doing it once a week, at least. Always once a week. Just don't stop and iterate and iterate and iterate. And we did it for it's like 2 or 3 years, basically, just home brewing every week. The point of it, writing down all the recipes. Eventually moved from condo space to a rented space in Kensington Market in Toronto.
Just to brew?
Yeah, just to brew. We rented out just like a room from a friend in their place. And we go there like every weekend and just do a brew.
Right.
And, got like a old cabinet freezer and put a temperature controller on it, and like the whole, we went like, fancy schmancy homebrew set up.
That's always the homebrew goals. So cool. Okay.
And, it got to a point where like I was not super happy with my job. I was a software developer. I'm actually trained as a software engineer. I graduated as a software engineer. Wow. So nothing to do with brewing.
No. Okay.
Though a lot of those skills, like a lot of the technical ways of analyzing things and stuff, it translates a lot. And there's a lot of deep, like sort of intricate details in brewing that appeal to those same sort of elements that I saw in programming. And that's sort of what really got me into like going down the rabbit hole into all the details.
Okay.
So anyway, eventually it hit a point where I wanted to go professional with it, and sort of just take the leap. After the really difficult part of raising money and finding a location, which was actually the biggest barrier really to entry.
Especially in Toronto.
Toronto, it's hard. Managed to make it happen. And like, then that was a whole other adventure, right?
Right, of course.
Like, all of a sudden jumping up basically orders of magnitude in scale, no longer throwing out a beer is no longer like, tens or maybe, maybe probably tens of dollars. It's instead thousands of dollars,
Right. Can't be done.
Or keep it to a minimum.
And
I mean,
what year did this? What year did you start brewing, and what year did the brewery say the planning when you were like, oh, we're doing, and you started looking for a location?
right. Oh, man. I guess started brewing. It's like 2010, 2011.
Okay.
And then the brewery opened in 2016. So
Okay.
so if you subtract about a year and a half from that, from like April, May 2016,
So
that's
probably
sort of,
late 2014-ish is when you
yeah.
started where you're at now. Okay. So you were born in Kensington, and then as soon as you decided, all right, let's start looking, and it took a year and a half to do everything from finding it to open, or was it more like you?
I wouldn't say it's not just a switch. That's
Right.
for sure. At any point, there were gradients all along the way, right?
Okay.
Sort of like looking here and there, thinking about it, going this, like starting the corporation was like a different step somewhere earlier, and then like little things happened along the way, but then there was a sudden acceleration probably about a year before.
Okay.
And then once the lease was settled, basically we were open within 6 months.
Oh, fantastic! So
yeah, maybe a bit longer, but not much longer.
That's a good turnaround.
Yeah, we it was very well planned. It was very very strictly planned.
Okay.
And we had a lot of help from a lot of talented people.
Fantastic. And you are located. It's sort of what's the area called? Is it like not quite Junction, but like?
It's like it's like the fringe of the Junction. It's called the Wallace Emerson Junction in the west end of Toronto. Yeah, we're like literally on the railroad, like just on the wrong side of the railroad tracks from the Junction.
Right. To take you out. Yeah. Are you near, because my friend who used to be my co-host here, he lived at Lansdowne and DuPont. And I think he used to...
very close.
Yes, I think he said it was like 5 minutes walk from there, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so it's really like... And you go west from there.
Yep. Yeah, west, southwest from there.
Oh, so you'd be near Hale, like the coffee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Hale is just north from us, up Canada.
Oh, okay, sweet. All right, I totally get it now. All right, perfect. So when you opened in 2016, what did you open with? Was it just straight? Was the plan to be like just brew pub, or were you packaging at the time? Like, what did that look like?
Yep, we were bottling everything pretty much. 500 milliliter format, which we stick to this day. We do a lot more canning now. But yeah, it was basically tap room, bottle shop, and that was it. No online store. That came much later. Yeah. But yeah, it was, and no patio.
Do you have one now? Okay. Yes. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. Then the beers you were making when you were home brewing, or I don't even know what you call it, that midpoint when you had the Kensington spot. What kind of beers were you making then, and how many of those transitioned into the actual final brewery?
Yeah, man, most of the brews that were being made back then, a lot of them were like Belgian inspired beers. Like the one big beer that really got me into brewing was Delirium Tremens. Like I still love a good Belgian strong golden ale, but I really wanted to sort of make my own twist on that beer. One of those beers, it was called Phineas Gage. We made it once with Halo, like professionally. But like a lot of those beers, I don't know, grew out of I wouldn't say grew out. I still enjoy Belgian beers. I just can't drink them they're not sessionable.
No,
like
I'm with you, man.
I can't crush a lot of Belgian beers in a night, right? Like
They're
and
intense.
enjoy my time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the
Yeah,
ABV, but there's the intensity. Like you're gonna have a triple. Like
yeah,
you don't need 500 mils of a 9% triple, or even the doubles, or anything like that. Like there's not many Belgian styles. Maybe like the Flanders Red if they're like a Rodenbach and it's soft and smooth and 5%. But anything else, it's so. I find I'm so with you on that. I feel like it's a part of the beer nerd journey to start with the Belgian. At least back then, back when you started homebrewing, is when I got into beer seriously too. And the Belgian was a big part of it, like a really big part of the discovery phase, because there were such interesting styles and flavor profiles.
It's a
but
whole other world.
Totally. But I can absolutely understand that, that same feeling. Now I can barely drink any of those styles anymore. They're cool. Basically, what you have in your glass there is about as much as any of it as I kind of want. It's just intense. So, okay, I totally understand. So you were making those things because you liked them at the time, and that adds up for the time frame if you were brewing out of there in 13, 14, 15?
Totally. Yeah, and I mean, this was well before the New England style came about. Before I had any knowledge even of I think just around that time I was starting to learn about imperial IPAs.
Okay.
Because Pliny the Elder, which is sort of the quintessential West Coast IPA, actually developed by the guy who made the IPA, Vinny,
right,
from Russian. That beer I didn't even learn about until, I don't know, just maybe a year before opening the brewery.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever get the Vermont side? Because I guess. Okay, so it's still a while ago. So that there's, I guess, in that time frame that's mentioned in the same breath as Pliny is something like Heady Topper. Did you ever get into the Vermont side of things? Because I guess there's the full straight. Yeah, I'm because that's the other imperial, 8% double IPA, but completely different. That was equally as sought after and lined up for at that time, pre Hayes days.
Yeah. I mean, that was the sort of the beginning, the sort of jump off point into Hayes land and the whole East Coast big juicy IPA craze, which continues to this day. It's nailing down that perfect IPA will always be on my mind. There's really, there aren't too many styles better in my mind than just that getting it right, that mouthfeel and just the fullness of it. It's
So you would have opened. Yeah, man, it keeps you going for it. But I imagine now I'm thinking about it. From memory, I think the first time I had it would have been late 2016 in Canada. I know a brewery in Ontario made a New England for that, and it was I was looking for them and no one was doing it. And that was probably fall 2016. When you opened then, did you start with the Belgians? Did you start with, obviously when you started probably was pre-Hayes, but what sort of stuff did you begin the actual, did you launch with? Do you remember the launch beers maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, there was Magic Missile, but it was a different beer. It had more caramel malts in it. It was much more of a sort of West Coast vibe to it, I would say, than it is now. There was no Shapeshifter. Hadn't even gotten into kettle souring and that whole thing. There were a few Belgian sort of beers that we were doing. We were doing some wits early on, which we totally don't do anymore.
Fair enough.
Yeah, a lot of things have just sort of changed. A few things have remained fairly consistent, like Event Horizon, our sarsaparilla stout, that really has not changed I mean, the recipe has evolved, but the style itself has not changed since the beginning.
Okay.
Yeah, we were doing sort of like one beer called 100 Points, which is a cherry double. There was RGB, which is a honey triple.
Wow.
Yeah, but like we just don't brew those beers anymore.
No, I can imagine that.
I would rather, instead of having, we have our Vermont yeast, and now I've got the Halo Brettanomyces blend that we use for all our saisons. But like we had like all these different yeasts that we'd have to keep, right? Like if you have a wit, like you could use your Belgian yeast, or you could use like a more specialized sort of wit yeast to get a more favorable flavor profile. So now like you're keeping all these yeasts, and it's like, well, but you have to brew at some point in order to reuse that yeast, or else you're buying new yeast every time. And like from an economic standpoint, it didn't make any sense. From a yeast management standpoint, it was foolish. And so, the pragmatism of the situation sort of spoke to a different reality,
Right.
I guess. Yeah.
That actually makes a lot of sense. I've never heard anyone say that before, but it's an extraordinarily like valid point. That if you're not like if someone's making, maybe they make a pale ale, but the pale ale yeast is probably gonna be the same as the IPA yeast, as the double IPA yeast or whatever in that whole family. But if you can do one Hefeweizen, like you really do have to use a Hefeweizen yeast or a wit yeast, whatever, because it's very specific. But if you're not doing it, and then unless you've got like some, I guess you can keep them in the fridge or something for a while, but probably not forever, I imagine.
Yeah, most yeasts give it 2 weeks tops,
Really?
depending. Yeah, if it's wild yeast like Brettanomyces, you can keep for like a year or longer. I mean, like I wouldn't use a commercial pitch for that long, but or for that long. But like it's a survivor. most strains of Brett, they'll stay around for a long time. I mean, they found like whatever, like sunken ships with bottles of beer, and they're able to harvest Brettanomyces out of them.
That's so insane. It's a trooper of
years. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, generally you don't want to keep too many strains.
Right. So it made sense to kind of move on. Philippe was just asking here. He's like, "What style of beer do you prefer brewing overall?"
Oh man.
If that's even.
I love IPAs. Like that's my jam. I love slightly higher ABV, like big hoppy beers.
Okay.
Juicy, lots of pithiness, but like balanced and full.
Nice.
I like trying to get the balance right.
Okay. That's the big challenge, I guess, in these beers. I had someone say to me recently that the New England style, by definition, isn't balanced, but this was from somebody who I'd had on in the past, and he didn't like them because he's like, he made a balanced version, which was super not really New Englandy. And then I had him on, that was a couple of years ago, and then recently he was like, I was wrong. Like, it's not supposed to be balanced. But you could probably also argue that within that style guideline, it's technically, obviously, because it's so hop forward, like you can't pull back that hop forward side of it, or it probably ceases to become a New England or even an IPA period. But when you say balance with regard to that, what are you referring to specifically?
Well, like I think that,
or even do you agree that it's not balanced? It's inherently unbalanced style.
No, I don't.
Okay.
I think that it really depends on what your definition of balanced is, and there are different ways of looking at it. So one way of looking at it is from the point of view of, can I drink a lot of this and be happy at the end of it, or continue to be happy and want more of it? If the answer to that is yes, it's balanced, in my opinion. Like from your perspective, it's a balanced beer,
right?
Because it's appealing to you, like from start to finish, and it's leaving you wanting more. Like that strikes me as a balance in one manner of speaking. I think there's the more sort of zithologist focused or Cicerone sort of focused term of balanced, which would be, does the bitterness and the sweetness balance each other out? Is there like sort of is the flavor like coherent and consistent throughout it, and like does it sort of merge well with the body of the beer? Like, are the mouthfeel and flavor coming together in a harmonious way? That could be another way of looking at balance. I think that in both of those definitions of balance, I think a New England style is doing its job if it's made well. Like, I think, like, yeah, it's a bit sweeter than your typical IPA. It doesn't have the same kind of IBU content of an IPA. But then you could argue the opposite and say, well, maybe IPAs before that were not balanced. Maybe they were too bitter, you know? Like, and a lot of people would say that about like Stone IPAs from like the late 90s or early aughts or whatever it was. I guess early aughts, yeah. Like they were just like punch you in the face with pine needles and resin, right? Like
they really were.
And that was like people like that. Some people like that, but I would argue it wasn't balanced, and I wouldn't drink it now.
Right.
So there's a time and place element to balance too, right? There's like there's a lot of context around what balance means, and it means different things to different people. People are the context or part of the context. Yeah, I think it's complex. It's a complex question.
Yeah, no, I see, man. I love that. The people are the context. That's dope. That's a great quote right there that summarizes. So therefore, coming to your beers, then, when you say you are making, you try to make balanced beers, you know, particularly with regard to the haze, I imagine then you're referring to the first thing you said, which was, can I drink the beer and then be like, I want another one of those?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's always what I want to achieve, really, with our beers.
That's dope. Yeah. I like that. So then to keep going, I know I took us on a bit of a tangent there. With regard to the opening was all those different beers, you had the wit and blah, blah, blah. When did things start to change? Because I probably had Shapeshifter for the first time. I don't remember which variant, but I want to say 2018. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Or was it later?
I mean, I think, no, Shapeshifter was probably came about in it's probably like late first year, early second year. So
okay. So it was pretty...
yeah, we would have started brewing it by 2017, I believe.
Okay.
Gosh, it's been a long time. Honestly, you'd probably look that up and I'd be wrong. I don't know.
You know what? I'll check while you're talking. I'll see. I'll see because it tells me when I had it, so I'll take a look and see exactly when it was. I feel the actual. So there's an OG one. Okay, I've only had Blackberry and the original. I had the original twice. It says July 2018 on Tiff's birthday and April 2018. So I guess that was it. And then Blackberry was one time, and that was also 2018. Okay.
Cool.
So that would be about right. Okay. So for people who don't know, that's your fruited sour series, Kettle sour series, and that is your. I would say that's what you're most known for. Would you think? Even though maybe this Magic Missile is the closer to the flagship, I feel like when I think Halo, I think Shapeshifter.
Yeah, I would say like our kettle soured stuff is probably what we're best known for. I think we were probably one of the first breweries to start really pushing it in Toronto. And like it became a big part of our process like pretty early on. Like just perfecting and getting the kettle souring thing down so that it was producing like a clean sour flavor that doesn't sort of taste, I find, like overcooked or anything like that. I think kettle sours can go in that direction pretty easily.
Yeah.
And trying to get that process down and refine it so that it's fresh, sort of like doesn't have that sort of more rank quality that you can get sometimes. Yeah. So yeah, Shapeshifter was one of the first beers sort of that was used to perfect that process. And then it became sort of our thing for a lot of our saisons as well.
Okay. And then when did you start doing the New England IPAs then? Was that also 2017? Because I think that's when Toronto really, because Toronto were one of the earlier ones in Canada to really catch on. I recall Belgian started doing theirs in either late 2016 or early 2017 from memory anyway. So I imagine you guys would have been in that time frame.
Yeah, pretty much. It was not like just flipping a switch. It is a remarkably hard style to master or to even get close to mastering. Getting like a homogeneous and stable haze in a beer is surprisingly difficult, without like some sort of strange chemical aids, which apparently now exist in the market, but I do not use them.
Okay.
But it's
what are they?
Of course, inevitable.
Of course. What will they be?
Honestly, I don't know the full details of them, but probably some sort of emulsifier coupled with some sort of pH like buffering agent.
Okay.
That would be my guess. Maybe some collection of certain size proteins or something like that in solution. But like,
okay.
Like the big thing about the New England style that makes it so hard is you're like that haze is, it's like it's proteins, it's polyphenols, it's like longer chain sugars, all, and hop oils, all in a matrix, like this big jumbled up matrix, and it's all holding itself together with chemical bonds and not falling out of solution very fast. And how fast it falls out of solution is very important because that's its sort of shelf stability, right? Like if it just fell out of solution in 2 weeks, you know, you go and buy this thing and then you pour it out and there's just sludge at the bottom. That's not pleasant.
No.
So like, yeah, there's a huge amount of balancing with that style. It's hard to develop.
Right. So then I guess if you did it in 2017, it was, you know, probably as a drinker yourself, you're discovering the style and you're like, wow, this is super interesting and people want it. It was super fresh here. I remember being, you know, it was super hard to get initially. Not many people were doing it. You know, obviously not like it is now. How was, when you started doing that, like what was the reaction from people? Were people sort of like, what the hell is this? Like, you know, why can't I see through this beer anymore? Or was the, you know, what was the sort of general response?
I wouldn't say that, like, our customers have been such nice, wonderful people. I've not like encountered any kind of like
pushback,
you know, pushback or sentiment of that nature, really. Like a lot of people are just sort of like pleasantly surprised, or, you know, or if they're not into that, then they go for, you know, a different style of beer. I think like most people, like they're at first with sours, there was a lot of people who were like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna like a sour. Like there's always, and there's a lot of that with hops as well, right? It's always hops and sours, like they tend to divide people for some reason or another. And then you know, you introduce someone to like a well-made sour or a well-made hoppy beer, and like it changes their perspective. And you know, or it doesn't.
Or it
And,
doesn't.
you know, then they can keep drinking whatever they want to drink, you know, like that's cool. But yeah, we never had any significant backlash or anything like that. I think people just sort of, they were educated, they tasted it, they enjoyed it,
Right.
you know, or they tried whatever else they wanted to try and went with that instead.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
that's good then. Because I imagine I was sort of assuming that a lot of people would have, particularly in, you know, maybe if you have that community where you're at, like if it's not just beer nerds, you probably would have had a whole bunch of just locals because you have a local brewery and they just come in and maybe they didn't know a lot about beer and they come in and all of a sudden you've got this beer that used to be clear and now these new ones that are not. And then people might be like, what's happening here? But I imagine there's a bit of loyalty probably involved in that. They just love whatever you do anyway.
A lot of the people who come into the brewery are like super open-minded about beer, and like, you know, like it's not hard to convince people if there's a well-made version of something, you know,
give it a crack.
That, like, yeah, give it a shot. There is the occasional person who comes in who's like, do you have any lagers? You know, like that's the first thing. Right. It's just like, no, we don't.
I was gonna ask, you don't do crispies at all, eh?
No. We just don't have the capacity for it. We don't have the space for it. Yeah, it makes no sense for us.
It makes sense for your lineup, but I can see physically, yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, physically it makes no sense. It'd be cool to do a pilsner at some like a hoppy pilsner, something, yeah, like nice dry hop pilsner someday.
Yeah, it's that seems to be the biggest pushback, I guess, from just literally just space and time. Like you could run through 3 different batches of an IPA in the same time that you'd run a pills, like for 6 weeks or something. And
yeah,
it's sort of yeah, it is pretty tough. Did you want to? I'm just looking at the time to sort of maximize which beers we get through. We can finish that one after. Did you want to move to the next one? What do you think?
Yeah, let's move to the next one.
Which one do you want to do?
Jeez.
So I think we have New Wave, and then a couple Shapeshifters, and then the Saisons.
Let's move to a Shapeshifter.
Okay. Which one are you feeling?
Yeah. Which one are you feeling?
Which were the two? Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's do the black raspberry.
Black raspberry.
Shapeshifter plus.
Amazing. Yeah. Dave, can you grab
something
Shapeshifter black raspberry? Yes, switch it up a little bit. Amazing. So this was a style for people who are watching. We were just talking about before. This is so basically it's what is it, like 5-ish%?
The Shapeshifter?
Yes, sir.
It's 6.5%.
6.5. We're going to get to the labels at some point too. These things are beautiful. I love them.
So yeah, this is a bit more in the milkshake vein.
Oh, you got the lactose? Oh, yeah. Okay, it's a sour IPA. Yo, do you know what? For some reason, I kept thinking that Shapeshifter is like just a straight kettle sour, like a dry hop sour or something, but it's technically a sour IPA.
Yep.
All right. I wonder why I thought that. Maybe just because it was sour, I just assumed. Woof. All right. Look at this bad. Oh, Jesus Christ. That color. Yes. Black raspberry is a great fruit for this, eh?
I love it. It's so great. Yeah, it's just such a rich, wacky fruit. Like,
yeah.
Raspberry by itself, I find just all you taste is just this like really tart raspberry. Mm-hmm. It's just raspberry. Like, you can't put raspberry in a beer and have it not just taste like raspberry, I find. But black raspberry, there's more to it. Like it's got that sort of seedy quality of like a blackberry, but like still a lot of that sort of jamminess from the raspberry, but it's not just straight up raspberry.
Right. No, you're right. It's got like that nice happy medium. Yeah. Ooh. Cheers, bro.
Cheers.
All right. So a 6.5 Yeah, got vanilla and lactose. Okay, so it's like arguably a sour milkshake.
It's yeah, it does not have pectin in it though.
Mm.
So
And that would be the other
most
differentiator.
the original milkshake, Tired Hands
Yes.
did. They originated this style. They would use or they do use green apples basically in the kettle
For that, okay.
and just extract a shit ton of pectin. And that basically acts as kind of like a gelling and emulsifying agent throughout fermentation. And so like when you dry hop it or when you add fruit to it, it just captures more of it and just like makes this jelly haze, you know?
Right.
And sort of and adds like a almost like non-Newtonian fluid like element to it, you know, like it's got like a weird sort of jelliness to it. But we don't use pectin because I just find like maybe someday I'll use it in a different beer, but I want to stick with sort of the sour IPA and just add the nuances of vanilla and lactose to it, just to get the sort of sweetness
and all that in there. The vanilla's pretty subtle, yeah? Because I feel like I'm not picking it up. I mean, it's fresh out the fridge, so it's obviously quite cold and it'll get a little warmer, I'm sure. But I feel like the vanilla is like typically a backbone in these type of beers, like, you know, from the milkshakes that I've had. I always find that the vanilla is mostly like in the back, and I imagine that's similar to this too.
Yeah, I try and keep the vanilla like it's not foreground, it's more of a background flavor.
Right.
Or I try and keep it so that it's not overpowering the fruit, like, but it's still complementing the fruit. There's a balancing act for sure, and different fruits inevitably require different amounts of vanilla.
Okay.
Based off of fruit, right? So like there's a substantial amount of vanilla. Also, like, yeah, we use like real vanilla beans in this. We use Madagascar vanilla beans.
Okay.
It's yeah. God, they're expensive.
Yeah, right? So keep going up.
Vanilla is so pricey.
It's so, do you know why it's pricey? I never heard why.
I believe it has to do with how it's basically picked. I think it has to be hand picked. Right. It's like a super labor intensive crop.
They seem quite fragile. Like you probably couldn't have like a tractor come and just take it off. Like if you break it, then the mill's done.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, I think it also has to do with where in the world vanilla grows. Like, you know, how much industrialization is taking place in Madagascar.
Yeah. Or Tahiti, I think, is the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I guess they got different flavor profiles. Someone was telling me the other night. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah.
And they said they know this lady here in Quebec that was could keep like she could do like a 4-hour podcast just on vanilla. Like she's the vanilla lady.
Yep.
And just explains all the different stuff. And I was like, wow, I just didn't know it was that deep.
Oh yeah, it's got its own terroir.
Yeah,
it's like pretty much any crop, but I think vanilla is very prominent.
Right.
Like yeah.
Okay, so to come on, this is great, man. Like I'm super. I don't know why I'm super surprised it's a sour IPA. What would the difference be between making this a sour IPA and then making it a kettle sour that just has lactose and fruit and vanilla? Like what in this makes it the sour IPA versus the kettle sour?
I mean, I think at that point, the differentiating factor is your use of hops.
Okay.
How you, like, where the hops are, or if any hops are added. If it was just a kettle sour, like, you technically don't have to add any hops at all. All you're really doing is just, you know, throwing lactobacillus into your kettle and letting it sit warm overnight or whatever. Till it drops to a pH that's desirable, and then you either kill it off or just throw it all back and throw it into a fermenter afterwards. I would recommend killing it off.
Right.
But yeah, the sour IPA thing. I mean, and like I made this, like I just made it up. Like as far as like it's concerned, I know like IPAs, you dry hop them. This is kettle soured. It's a sour IPA because basically what I'll do is after it's been soured in the kettle, I heat it up. I don't boil it, but I kill the lacto.
Okay.
And I throw a ton of hops in when it's, relatively hot, like 70 to 80 degrees Celsius. Let it sit on the hops, extract the oils or extract some of the oils. And then, whirlpool it, put it into a fermenter. And then after fermentation's done, dry hop it a lot.
Right. A lot.
And that's how I would define it as being a sour IPA. It's dry hopped and it has a ton of hops in it. Other than that, yeah, it is a kettle sour. Right. It has lots of hops.
Okay. Do you know which hops are in this one, by the way?
So, oh man, off the top of my head, jeez.
It's not that serious. I was just curious.
I can find out in like 5 seconds.
Okay. No, this is a great beer, man. I love this.
It's Simcoe, Amarillo, Citra, Centennial.
Simcoe, Amarillo. Write this down.
Citra and Centennial.
Citra, Centennial. Great combo. Okay. I love that. I got a question from Philippe here for you, and then I actually have a question that I imagine you probably went to your website to look at that recipe, which I want to talk about because that's something you guys do that's super unique.
Yeah, sure.
Philippe is saying, do you have a style that you don't like or you have difficulty brewing? And if you have to brew it for some reason, like say public demand, it just happens to be people want it but you don't like it, how would you approach making that beer? It's a good question, man.
Yeah.
Tough one, eh?
I definitely have styles I don't like. I would say I really don't like Hefeweizens.
I'm right there with you. Why don't you like that? Is it the banana?
This is banana water.
Yeah. Who wants that?
It's so funny. I enjoyed them when I was like really like just getting into beer, like really early on, like because it was just so absurd and unique and weird, right? Like it's like, oh my god, it tastes like bananas. How is this possible? And now it's just like any beer that tastes like bananas, I'm just kind of like, I don't want to drink this. Like I'm just not interested. Like bubblegum is good, a bit of clove, but like you start getting more and more towards the isoamyl acetate banana penicillin. I'm like, no. I'm done.
I couldn't agree more. People give me shit about it. I was like, I can't deal with them either. It's just, it seemed like it was like such the early days type of style. It was the stuff we would, like you were saying. I remember drinking them early on. But, wow, this is amazing. It's hazy where everything else is clear, and it's this fun thing. And now I'm just like, every time I have one, I'm just please no. Yeah.
That's weird.
So if you had to make a Hefeweizen, then that's a good example.
Yeah.
Would you do any? if people really wanted it, would you make one?
No, I wouldn't. No.
That's the beauty of being your own boss.
Yeah, it really is. Like I get to make these decisions. There's nobody forcing me to make any particular beers. And like I didn't get into this to make the beers I don't like to drink. Like I want to make the beers I want to drink. I want to, I want to enjoy what I do. I don't think I would enjoy it if I was making things I didn't like. So, yeah, I don't find myself ever at the brewery contemplating or making beers that, I'm not happy to be making. Yeah.
That's a great privilege. I love that.
Yeah. just trying to think, like, what, if anything, like the closest, like, I'm not a huge like dark beer drinker, like I'm not a porter, like stout drinker very much. So like Event Horizon is like a beer I don't drink very often. I mean, I don't drink most of my beers very often just because I it's work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tie it to work, and I do it enough at work to make sure that the beer is tasting good. Like, I know what the beers taste like, believe me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, like, I enjoy drinking other breweries' beers in my spare time.
Right. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. But like, yeah, the darker beers, not so much my thing, but like I find ways to make it more enjoyable by like setting goals for myself. Like, I want the mouthfeel to be this way. I want the aroma to be that way. Like, I set parameters, and like then I try and achieve those goals, and that sort of, you know, adds value to me. It makes it more enjoyable. Like, there's something to it. There's a goal, you know?
Yeah.
Even if that beer is not exactly the beer I always want to drink, you know?
That's a really cool approach. And on that, I find that the breweries that are the most fire are when they do exactly what you're talking about, where the person in charge of making the beer makes what they want to drink. Because you're going to make what you want to drink, and you're going to make that style the best it could possibly be. So a brewery where the brewer loves Hefeweizens is probably going to make a fire Hefeweizen. It won't be for you or me, but the people who love it, they're going to love that. So I really respect that, and I like that dedication to not fulfilling a market need for the sake of it. And you're really sticking to your guns, which makes the brewery kind of special. Because I kind of feel like if you just gave into everything, I don't know, what does that make you at the end of the day? When this is technically an art, it's science, but it's an art, and it's your art that you've been working on for a decade. So it kind of feels weird to compromise that. So I respect that a lot.
Yeah, it feels disingenuous. You know? Like, just yeah.
So you're telling me we can't do a Halo BAOS Hefeweizen collab? Is that what you're telling me?
Sorry.
I think that was a test. That was a test. You didn't bend. I love it. This is genuinely fantastic. So this beer came out in 2017. At least this one. It sounds like when I was not sounds like, it looks like I was checking Untappd before to see where I was at. It looks like there's a 20, 30, 40 variants of this beer. You've done a ton of them. Do you rotate them, or are they like, all right, this week I'm going to do this, and you never do it again?
A lot of it has to do with availability of fruits and fruits that I think would complement the style more, right?
Okay.
Like, I don't think I'll ever do like a straight up raspberry shapeshifter, just because I don't like straight up raspberries in beer. Like, that's weird. Like there are just certain fruits where I'm probably never going to touch it. And then there are certain fruits that I've latched onto that I really love, like blood orange. I really love blood orange. I really love black currant. They're just they have a definite character onto themselves that I think contributes to the beer better than I think what other fruits would do it.
Right.
We have sort of, I guess it's new-ish, but like it's a new series of beers, the co-dominance beers, which are basically, they're dual fruited IPAs. And that's sort of a way to sort of break into, well, how do different fruits complement each other with hops on top that also complement those fruits? So finding pairings and then like sort of exploiting the best parts of those pairings with hops that further punch those notes, right? And like I'm aiming to do a plum and lychee one. I've always wanted to do lychee. I haven't done it yet, but like I love. There are certain fruits where I'm like, oh man, that combination sounds so good. Like lychee and plum, that sounds like a good sake cocktail, you know, or something.
Yeah. I've never even heard of those two in the same sentence. That's amazing. So is that the aim? You've been combining fruits that are kind of like less common? I mean, when I say less common, the combinations are less common.
I mean, like, it's not about being esoteric about it. It's just about finding good combinations. Like, I'm happy to use two completely pedestrian fruits if they combine well.
Right.
It doesn't, yeah.
It doesn't have to be.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy schmancy. It just has to work.
Okay, that makes complete sense. I love that. That's great. That's fun too, trying to figure out new. I mean, there's one thing to figure out hop combinations, which is, you know, the thing that every brewer has to deal with. But then making these fun fruit combos, that's even cooler.
Yeah.
I guess you're probably more limited because I imagine you use the aseptic purees, so you've only got what they can.
Yeah, I mean, we'll use aseptic purees, concentrates, and then even just like regular purees, depending. It depends on where they come from and how long they get stored. But yeah, there is definitely a pretty significant limitation there in terms of availability, and then even like time of year will have a big impact on that too, right?
True. Particularly here in Canada, seasonality is a big thing. Okay,
yeah,
that makes complete sense. So then on that note, speaking of the recipes, if people have seen on your cans, it does say full recipe at halobrewery.com. And that is something that I think, if I'm not mistaken, probably the first time I ever heard of a brewery putting their recipes online was you guys a few years back. Tell me where that idea came from, what the intent behind that is, and it's super unique.
Sure, yeah. So it originally comes from actually the software world. In software, basically, it's called open source, but you release your code to the world, and in a sense, you're giving back to the community. You're sort of showing people the guts of your creation, and you're also opening yourself up to not only people copying and mimicking the work and building on it, but also criticizing it and helping you improve upon it. So all of those ideas are things that I wanted to sort of replicate outside of, my original career as a programmer, software engineer, in the brewing world, because basically, like, as a home brewer, all of the information that I got while I was developing recipes as a home brewer came from other people. It came from reading, online articles, forums, books, from a lot of free books, a lot of free online stuff that people just openly shared. There's just so much sharing out there that you stand on the shoulders of giants. That's how science works. Everybody, we don't get somewhere without building off what other people have done. And so I really wanted to punch that point with our sharing of the recipes, or sharing of elements of our process online.
I love that. Had you seen it anywhere else, or was it just like an idea that was strictly from your software days?
Like, I've seen bits and pieces here and there. Like people have shared. I think gosh, I can't actually list like any breweries off the top of my head.
Neither can I. Yeah, it's so rare.
Yeah, it's pretty rare. I've seen like more details than other places, like not instead of just listing malt, hops, yeast, water. Like, okay, cool.
Like, we know, bro.
That's useful. Like, you don't even have to put that on the can legally, you know? Like, why are you even doing it?
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't know this. I thought it was legal because everybody does that. Okay.
No.
That's hilarious.
No. Oh, man. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's not a lot out there.
Right. So it's a pretty, like, I mean, it would be kind of cool, man. I mean, I guess, like you said, I didn't think of it like that from the perspective of giving back, particularly being your home brewer. You know, you came from that world, like even when I've done, I don't know, 20 home brews, not many, with my friends, and like we would go online to like homebrew talk forum or whatever, and you'd Google like, I want to make a clone of this or something on that line, and then you find out what they use this. All right, cool, and you go to the shop and blah blah blah. Like that stuff is like incredibly helpful, if not like essential for home brewers, particularly when you move,
absolutely.
You know, you move to all grain from the kits or whatever. So for you to be able to do that, I mean, why do you think that other breweries don't do it is probably really the question.
Man. Well, for one, you know, doing it is not, it takes my time, right? Like there is data entry involved. I did, like, as a programmer, I was able to throw together the back end of that website, and it's unique. It's custom built so that I can easily enter that data and then have it show up in a comprehensive, pretty manner, right? And you know, like I think a lot of breweries that isn't their MO, that isn't sort of what they set out to do, so they don't put the money into it. They don't, you know, put the time into it, or they don't have the expertise to put all that together, and they aren't willing to spend the money and the resources to do that. And that makes total sense, and I get it. I mean, it doesn't stop you from listing all the ingredients in like straight up text, but like excusing that, maybe another reason might be that people think that is proprietary information. And, you know, people are entitled to that opinion. I think like that is a whole other podcast, that topic of copyright and rights, intellectual property, like and remixing and Creative Commons, all of that information and the way that it's remingled in society, that's a big topic.
Yeah, it is a big one.
I personally believe in the freedom of information and open information for the win. I don't know how else to put it.
No, I love it.
But not everybody agrees.
Right. I was actually about to ask you, did you, I imagine now, like you've said that, have you had, let's just say negative's not really the word, but maybe like, you know, people kind of telling you, hey man, like, what are you doing here? Like anyone was ever mad at you? Other breweries ever like, dude, what are you doing? Like, or maybe just thinking.
Never had any.
No? Okay. No. Did anyone ever push back as far as like other breweries? Did anyone ever question you? Is probably what I mean. Did anyone brewer like, dude, what are you doing this for? Like, you know, what's up?
No. I mean, like, no. I think like, I don't know. I've never had any of those sorts of things happen. No.
Okay, that's good. Just because I just wondered, because you're right about the proprietary thing. I imagine that whilst beer is a strange world because everyone is so open, period. Like I'm sure you know better than anyone. I just know because people have told me in these interviews, but people have been like, yeah, if I using this new yeast, I'll call the brewery down the road that I know, they'll be like, hey, like, I'll ask them, hey, have you used this before? Yeah, I have. Like, and they'll tell you about it. And like, yo, I need some Galaxy. You got any real quick? I'll hit you back or whatever. Things like that. Everyone helps each other out, and they're quite sort of open. But putting those recipes public with all of those details is just because it's so uncommon. I was wondering if anyone had ever pushed back on it. Aside from the resources, like I can't really see any other reason for people not doing that unless there's like a technique that they don't want to disclose, that they feel like they don't want to share or whatever.
Sure. Yeah, this isn't like the secret formula to Coca-Cola or something, right? Like it's really not, and that's like that was like the first thing when like I was raising money for Halo. It's like the first thing investors would be like, oh, but like Coke would never give away their secret recipe. It's like, this is not like that.
Yeah.
Like brewing is way more of a process than it is the ingredients. I like would like, please hold me to saying that, because like brewing is so much more process. The equipment you have, the dynamics of it, and then also like the step-by-step process you take and sort of the technology within that process that you develop is what defines your beer ultimately. Sure, the ingredients play an important role, undoubtedly. They're super important. But even within that, there's terroir and all of these other details that you're not gonna capture by just listing the word Galaxy hops or Centennial or Bohemian Pilsner malt or whatever, right? Like, what year was it? I don't like what which lot was it from? You could go into all kinds of detail, and like, sure, information's lost in that process, but it's not about providing everything straight down to the molecule. It's just about providing people with frameworks to work from. Like this is what a professional brewer is doing in order to make a pale ale, a dry hop pale ale. Like, you can copy this and you can get like a good foothold so that you can start adding your own flourishes and figuring out your own process from this blueprint, right? It's like I don't see why it would be a big deal to people, because like there's just so much specific stuff like that happens within the brick and mortar brewery within Halo that is vastly different, I'm sure, process wise, from another brewery on the other side of the city. Who the hell knows?
Let alone a homebrew.
Yeah.
I guess you're right. So you're really approaching it as you putting those recipes up is no different to a homebrew forum, really.
Right.
It's kind of just like, this is the malts we use. This is the. Do you put down the process? Like, do you put anything, or it's literally like 25% this malt, 25 blah blah blah? Like, what's the? I haven't actually looked at them, but
there's a tiny bit of process. Like we have sort of it's a flow from top to bottom, from the mash all the way through to the fermenter and packaging, and it just sort of shows, like where the dry hop happened, how many days, like stuff like that. It doesn't go into like crazy detail. Like, we don't talk about, for example, recirculation of dry hops and our process around that. Because not every home brewer has a method of recirculating dry hops. I know I certainly didn't as a home brewer. My method was shake the carboy hard.
Real hard.
Yeah.
So it's more of a...
just swirl it around.
Just kick it on the floor a bit.
Yeah.
So it was more of a practical sense as opposed to not wanting to share it. It was like you coming from a mind state of like, that was me. That's how I got here. I couldn't do it. It's useless information for them. Just no need to put that in there.
Yeah, or if people have questions about that, just email me, right?
And you'll
Like
tell them.
I
Okay.
answer emails about it all the time. I'm
That's
happy
dope.
to fence questions. Like it's yeah, like the thing is like our processes around certain things within our brewery are specific to our brewery, and I don't think they're really going to help homebrewers too much. And I think like there's something to be said about homebrewers sort of figuring out their own processes too. Like I don't know how to advise the perfect way to dry hop whatever vessel you're using for for
Fermenting.
your beer.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Because it is so specific and it's kind of tough. You are right. Um, it's just cool, man. It's just it's like just a unique little aspect of what you guys are doing. It's small and insignificant to most people, but for the homebrewers, I'm sure it probably means quite a lot because it's like, man, like this shapeshifter is crazy. How does he get this body or what is he using? And then you're like, oh, it's right there. It's on the website. At least you get a starting point. And like they said, now that if any homebrewers are watching this, they know that they can reach out to you you know, if they have
yeah,
more detailed questions that aren't answered. And I can imagine that being a helpful resource because it's sort of like, I don't know, without really like, I didn't get super deep into it, but I found it all often quite confusing. I'm not a science guy or anything, so I'm like,
Hmm.
I did, and I also didn't realize the importance of the volumes of everything. I remember like one of the last home brews we did. We were trying to make an amber Christmas ale. This is long, like 7 years ago, when somebody would make an amber Christmas ale, and I think we just got too much dark malt, and we realized too much. I'm like, fuck it, chuck it in, and it ended up
yeah,
being basically a porter or something. And I'm like, oh, okay, so you really have to stick to these, the
oh yeah,
actual
the percentages.
yeah, like it's really serious. And obviously now I
Yeah,
understand that, but like I'm not completely over. I'm not interested in any of that shit in shape or form. It's way too messy for home. You need like a space, like a little room in Kensington, perhaps, to do that. That's clean and has all the stuff. But yeah, I can see that being super valuable, and I don't recall that ever. It was literally just those homebrew forums. So yeah, man, good on you for doing that. I think it's dope. I'm sure if you're helping out other people that could be, future brewery owners, because
I hope so.
I imagine you would have, did you want to go to the next one? Just crushing this. This is just
Yeah,
glorious.
yeah, sure.
What would you like? It's up to you, sir. So we have
Um, let's move on to something slightly more fancy in a bottle.
Okay, I'm here for it. I put the ones in the fridge as you told me
Fancy
to.
in a bottle.
I think there was a red one and a green one, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. So there's the Tokyo Rose and the Chroma Key.
Yes.
Which one would you prefer?
Chroma Key was the key lime, I believe. Is that right? Which is a fruited farmhibiscus.
Is
that right?
Yep. Sour Brett Saison.
Sour Brett Saison.
Key lime.
And the Tokyo Rose was hibiscus.
Rose hips, which
rose
are
hips,
the fruit of the hibiscus flower.
Yep. I had no idea. Okay, so the lime, or that I kind of feel on the lime. The lime just feels like bright and refreshing. How you feel about the lime?
Yeah.
Yep.
Let's do it.
I love
sure.
It. Could you get me the green bottle from behind the fridge? Thank you so much. Tell us about these ones, man. I don't even know if I've had any of these before. So the Chroma Key it's called. Chroma Key lime. So it's a 5.8% farmhouse on Brett.
Yeah. So the Chroma Key series it's basically they're all like the same base beer.
Okay.
And then we'll play with basically scaling it in different ways and adding different fruits. So that's why it's called Chroma Key, right?
Okay.
Chroma Key being, like a green screen.
Yo, I never put that together. Of course, that's what it is. That's sick. Is that the same? Is that the same color? It is?
As a green screen.
Yeah.
It's the halo green, so I don't know if it's the same color as a
I
green
feel like
screen.
it's pretty close. Oh, that is so.
It does look close.
So you've got a whole
But,
series of Chroma Key, though, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this was the. Is this like one of the OG ones? Because it's the green one.
It would have been one of the first that we did.
One of the first.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna put it there. Okay. I'm gonna pull this up here. Look at that, mate. So farmhouse is something that I've noticed. I mean, I'm here in Montreal. This is like farmhouse city out here. I feel like in Ontario, it's for the most part not as common here. What made you want to do like fruited Brett farmhouse? Oh, that smells amazing. Like, what made you want to do something like this in a place where it's not quite as common?
So towards the end of home brewing, I started getting like really heavy into sour, funky American sour beers, basically. So I started just like my carboy collection multiplied, and I just had just like different just buy up white labs, like different packets of Pediococcus, Brettanomyces, and just start throwing them in at different rates, and Lactobacillus into these carboys, and then also start collecting bottle dregs from the bars I go to. I would go to a bar with a spray bottle of sanitizer and a lighter, and I would like light the rim of the bottle and pour it into like a small Erlenmeyer flask and like take it home with me. I was obsessed with capturing the dregs from various bottles of beers that I loved from breweries that I knew had good cultures.
Thank you. That is so, dude. That is like next level, right?
I mean, like, yeah, it was like I said, it's the rabbit hole. It just keeps going.
It just keeps going.
You just want to keep learning more and exploring more of that space. But like I would take Cantillon dregs, like Russian River, like and like their sanctification or whatever.
Yes, I love that.
God, just so many like different barrel aged or spontaneous beers, and just take the dregs and pitch it into a carboy with some more standard stuff, and just see how it panned out over the course of months to a year.
Right.
And what ended up happening was I started culling and finding like the best stuff out of those carboys.
Okay.
And then isolating those, and then sending basically the slurry from that off to Escarpment Labs, and then they isolated the strains from them, and sent us a bunch of vials with isolated strains, and then we sort of mixed and matched, and then that became our Brettanomyces culture.
So it's basically a mix of, so it's the Cantillon, or it's a bit of a mix of everything of the
there might be some Cantillon in there, or a Brettanomyces strain from a Cantillon. There might be one from who knows where. Like really, like I'd have to look through so many notes to find out the exact origins of half of these things.
That's right.
But
that's so.
But yeah, there are quite a few strains in there at this point.
That is extra cool, though. That's once again dedicated over and above. This is phenomenal. This is like so bright. It's exactly what I felt like. I'm glad I chose this one.
There's no sugar left in this.
No, nothing.
It's dry as a bone. Yeah,
hella dry. I'm getting the bright key lime notes on the nose. Super dry body I'm feeling as well. Like there's a lot of like dryness up front, which I imagine is from the Brett.
Yeah, also from the citrus, from the lime. Okay. There's the lime complements the Brett really well. There's a cherry, a bit of a sort of funky cherryness from our bread. So
I'm getting that.
it merges with the lime and does wonders. It's great.
Oh man, it's like refreshing. This is like I'm gonna be honest. I'm not really a big saison guy, but then you put Brett in front of it and then fruited. I'm like, all right,
yeah,
you got me.
It works.
Yeah, it just works so well.
Yeah.
And the only reason I don't like saisons that much was it comes back to what we talk about with Hefeweizen. I don't like the I guess the
clove.
The clove and the banana.
Yeah, the phenols.
Yeah, the phenols, man. I'm not here for it, and I'm glad to know someone else isn't, because I feel like I'm always the minority, and I don't want to be a hater or anything, because I know there's great. I love Hill Farmstead, and I have that stuff. I lose my mind.
Yeah.
But when I can get a good saison that's like this, and I imagine now, I guess I'm slowly learning that it's the Brett and the fruit that kind of really do it for me, because I'm not getting anything at all about this that I typically don't like. It's got all the flavors that I love. This is not barrel aged, right? It's just
Nope, it's just stainless, and then
beautiful
aged for a while in the bottle. But yeah, it's like I chose our Brett strains like with no phenols. Like I really don't like phenols in my Brett. At least nothing like overt. Okay. Like a little horsey wackiness here and there is okay. But like, please God, no Band-Aids and smoke, or like
Band-Aids.
And yeah, Band-Aid is a big one. Oh, it's so gross. Or like hospital floor, like.
Oh God, yo, I'm gonna be smelling that now for sure. Now you've gone and pointed that out. I never thought about that. Thank God this does not have that. Okay, so you've really like drilled that house strain down to sort of have those flavors that you're really looking for. Man, this is great. Is this whole series is essentially a series of the fruited saisons, Brett saisons? Yeah, try that. And that you've done like a million varieties according to this here. The key lime cherry, plum, passion fruit, pineapple, Saskatoon berry, tangerine, blackberry, so on and so forth. I mean, like, you've done a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
This is
I would say the key lime is my favorite.
It is your favorite? Sure. Okay, so this is good time.
I want us to have this one. Yeah, the key lime there's something about it. It just works so well with our Brett.
Yeah,
it's by far the best one, I think.
Oh, I love it. Montreal Beer Page, see, what's up, bro? And he says, how do you enjoy brewing with Brett? I love drinking it, but I feel like it gets a bad rep. That rhymes. Yeah, man.
I don't mind it at all. It's certainly not as like straightforward as Saccharomyces, that's for sure. Right. Like our Brett takes a while to chew through our beer.
Okay.
Or through our wort, I should say. Like it needs a good 2 weeks. 2 weeks to like do its primary. I don't even think about like doing something with it until 2 weeks is up.
Okay.
And then usually past that, it goes in conditions in a bright for another 2 weeks, and then sits in bottles for another month, 2 months.
Right. So it's a 2 to 3 month process for this bad boy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't like messing around with fast tracking saisons or any of our Brett stuff. So in that sense, it's a pain in the ass. But since we only brew this stuff in like the fall, winter, it's not something we would ever brew in the summertime because we just don't have the throughput. We don't have the capacity for it because we're brewing too quickly.
Right.
But when it comes time for like fall, winter, start getting this stuff going.
That makes sense. But I can pitch, man. That makes sense. But it's a shame because I can pitch you drinking this on a hot day outside. I mean, just chilling.
Well, Yeah, we build up a store of it over the fall and winter, and then we try and keep it available as long as we can over the course of the summer.
That's
But,
cool.
but yeah,
And I did see, to be honest, when I got the box, I was like, because I didn't have a ton of room in the fridge for bottles. That's why I was asking on the email, like, what should I put in to keep? Obviously, put the cans in immediately, but the bottles not as much. And I love it. It says 2020 age as well, and I was like, all right, sweet, we're good. So it means you can sit on them for a bit. For anybody who's
oh
able to
yeah,
get them, like what you probably should be doing is grabbing a bunch of them now and sitting on some of those bad boys for when May, June rolls around. You're going to be, hitting that 20, 25 degrees. Get that. I can. This is just. It's like the perfect patio drink right here, man. But I can see why.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, any of our saisons, I would say, after a year, they're at their best.
no
Like, give
shit, eh?
them 1 year,
Okay.
one
Should I
year
hang?
from
I should do
basic,
that.
yeah, from
So
release.
okay. So this one would have
But
been released last year, like a few months back. It
yeah, it
says
was just
2020.
at the end of last year. It
Okay,
was the end
sick.
of last.
Okay, I think I have a second one if I'm not mistaken. So I will. I'll sit on that. That's good to know because I'm always worried, man, about like. I imagine like yourself, doing what I do. I come into a reasonable amount of beer, and sometimes things get like lost in the shuffle and such like that. And I never want anything
Yeah,
to die just because it's. I'm always concerned
right.
about how long things should age, but that's really interesting to hear. That specifically that you, the creator of this bad boy, are telling me that it needs a year. Then, god damn it, I'll give it a year. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't need it, but it's
Of
at its
course.
best. It's at
Okay.
its best. Like if I had the choice, economically speaking, I would just have infinite storage space and keep these all for a year before releasing them.
Okay.
That's just not humanly possible.
Right.
That's not within the realm of economic possibility. So
Yet.
there's still
Yet.
good beers. Yeah, yeah.
Yet. Yeah. May I ask what
um,
makes it better after a year? Like, what's the difference
oh
between what we're
man,
drinking right now and the year?
it's like it's kind of like it softens out the edges. Like it
Mm.
just it adds subtlety, softness, and nuance. I don't know how else to say it. It's just like
That makes sense.
there's more funkier. Like the mouthfeel it's more. It just lands on the tongue nicer. I don't know. It's less sharp.
Okay.
I keep saying the same things in different words. But yeah, yeah, it's hard to describe. It's just yeah, it's a
Okay.
nicer beer.
Man, I'm sold. Okay. No, I love it. I'm always curious though, because you never know, because maybe there's like a time with the aging, like I was saying, like it always confuses me sometimes. You leave things in. I've had some people tell me when there's. I guess the reason I'm asking, my friend works at Bellwoods, and he's always I had some like skeleton keys from like 2017, and he yelled at me. He's like, "What are you doing?
Oh
Like,
yeah,
why haven't you had them yet?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just haven't. Like, they're there. I'm sorry." And he's like, "Yo, they're all going to drop that flavor out." I'm like, "I guess it's been 4 years or whatever coming up on."
right.
But and then the
Yeah,
reason why I don't know, maybe since he always told me that, it kind of always got me shook about keeping things for too long. So I was like, okay, well, this has got like a fruit in it. And my immediate gut reaction, oh, if it's got fruit in it, you should probably have that sooner than later, which is hence my sort of like, okay,
sure.
well, what would I do there? So is there like a high end limit then on the other side? So if it's perfect around a year, is it like don't keep it after 3 or something like that?
Oh yeah, it's definitely an upside down parabola.
Mm.
There's it's you know
Yeah, yeah,
it's a curve and it falls off.
yeah.
But like it really so for these beers, first of all, it depends on the fruit.
Okay.
Certain fruits will age better than other fruits. The lime, I've never seen the lime disappear. The lime is always there. It's amazing. Like it's
Right.
just like it doesn't age out. It's just an awesome fruit in that sense. It's very persistent. Most of the fruits for the chroma keys, like after a year, most of it's gone. Like it's pretty. but the beer becomes very interesting too. So it depends on what you want out of it. If you want to taste the fruit, then drink it earlier. If you are more after the like Brett or microorganism forward characteristics, then wait and see how it turns out. It'll get better, but it'll get better in very different ways that are usually not fruit forward.
Gotcha. Okay, so the optimal situation really is to buy like 4 of them at least and have one every 3 months or something, so you can see.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Why not, right?
That certainly would work.
Yeah. I think that's actually the coolest. Yeah. I always had people, like, sometimes I sat on beers and I didn't mean to. And I've heard other people say to me, oh, you always get 2 of everything that you plan to sell. Like, you have one fresh and then you sit on one so you know what the difference is. Otherwise, it's sort of like, yep. I mean, look, maybe you might not remember. I might not remember what it tasted like now if I do sit on the other one for a year. Like, who even knows? So I feel like it would. I mean, obviously not everyone maybe not has the budget or physical space or whatever, but to try something like that every few months, particularly a nuanced beer like this that would change so much. It's part of the fun stuff of beer, I guess, right? To watch it change. And, see how it goes. On that note, the other thing I wanted to mention, made sure we got in here this evening, is just your labels and all your artwork. It's just it's super interesting. It's just like geometric shapes and wicked, like, yeah. I mean, there's like that metallic shiny label. I don't know why. I feel like this aesthetic is so important, branding in beer. And even my girlfriend, who's our producer, she was like, yo, they look like, specifically the first thing she said was like, they look sick. Tell us about the branding, man. Like, how did that come about? What's the deal? It's super unique. It's just very cool.
Yeah. So Underline Studios does our branding. Their office is right above the brewery, so very close, very convenient. Yeah, and they're awesome. They do obviously fantastic work. Really, like, so there's a very long story here, and it starts back in home brewing land when. In the early days, like, the brand was a totally different brand. So we rebranded about 2-3 years in Halo, into Professional Halo. But originally it was more like a homespun brand. And what we were finding with that original brand was that it just wasn't scaling the way we wanted it to. It wasn't sort of standing out the way other brands were. And so, we approached Underline, and they sort of gave us a set of options. And this sort of direction appealed the most. The direction was like hard geometric, what I would describe as like a mix of Bauhaus and Distill, which is like, they're like German, Austrian sort of styles. Like, think like 60s, 50s Olympics posters. Like, yeah. I don't know how else to put it, but like, there are some gradients, but they're very contained. It is very highly line and shape focused, little in terms of organic shapes, very much more in terms of angular geometric shapes. Yeah, it's I personally love, like, I'm very minimalist. I'm very, like, I love my geometry. I'm wearing geometry. like
I was gonna say, is that merch?
No. This is just a shirt I found online.
It's even more gangster. You're dedicated to it.
Yeah, no, I love, like, I was as a programmer, I was very into computer graphics. I built 3D engines and stuff like that. Like I love geometry. What can I say? Shapes.
So you were pretty happy when
like that stuff. Yeah.
when they came to you with this idea. You were like, "Oh, that's the one."
Yeah. Yeah. It stood out as the right choice out of the ones they gave, and I was just like, yeah, that's for sure it. Um, and then sort of matching it to the different brands it's been a fun pastime. Like every time a brand graduates from, so we have a set of generic labels for when we're sort of experimenting and playing around with recipes and then releasing them. But like when we feel like brand is ready to graduate to like, yes, this is something we're going to brew again, ongoing. Um, I'll send an email to Underline and do like a full brief and say, this was the inspiration for why it's named this. Like, here are all the ideas surrounding that. Like, and then we kind of like, there's a back and forth where we figure out what this looks like. Like they'll go away and come back with a design, and then we'll talk amongst ourselves, iterate, and it results in some pretty cool stuff that I'm really happy with.
That's great, man. It's super signature. I feel like it stands out. If you saw it on a shelf anywhere, it definitely stands out as far as like. And that's really all you can ask for these days, particularly in such a a crowded little scene. Anywhere you
sure.
go, the fact that it stands out, and it's actually even cooler because I don't know, maybe I'm not a design guy. I'm just looking at it. I'm just like, there's got to be like finite things you could do with shapes in all these different beer brands. But I guess it's kind of actually the opposite of that. Like you can do anything. They're like. It's actually kind of trippy. It's really cool. Do you do much with these on it, with different designs and stuff, or is it like?
Yeah, we have some T-shirts. We have a glass with our anniversary design on it, which is sort of like a spiral kind of thing. But yeah, like our merch is, and then we have some posters as well.
That was what I was about to say. Posters. This screams poster to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like super post art. I mean, this is really cool. I feel like beer branding, particularly in 2021, is super important. It's something that, I mean, as coming up in beer in Ontario, it was pretty shitty back in the day, back in 2011 or so. Everything sucked. Everything was terrible. Here in Quebec, I moved here after that, but things were horrible. And now in both provinces, I really feel like it's been cool to see some of the more old school brands rebrand and sort of change their stuff up and it looks so super cool. And then guys like yourself who've been around a decent amount of time, like 5-6 years I guess now. This will be 5 years this year, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Even you guys switched it up a couple of years in. It's cool. I think it's just like a part of the experience, that elevated experience of craft beer that's more expensive because the beers have more thought and more expensive ingredients, going into it, and you want that visual aesthetic to be a part of it. I want to pick up this really nice bottle with a cool cap. Even the cap is dope with the actual halo on it. If that works, which is super cool. Which is interesting because this isn't anywhere else in your labels, from what I could tell.
Nope, it's its own asset.
Some little thing, which is great because it's mad specific to the to the bottle caps, and just looking at this, I'm like, wow, it feels like an experience drinking it, which I guess is what people really want from it. So I always appreciate that effort in branding and design, man. It's great.
Thanks.
I love it. No, it's super cool. So as far as like the other stuff that so basically the main sort of styles you guys are doing, you're doing the haze, you're doing the Shapeshifter, like that sour IPAs, you're doing this type of farmhouse bread stuff, you got the stout series. Is that the main type of stuff that you're making, or is there any other? Pretty much. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to like break into the big stouts more. Like we released
Imperial.
our first Imperial Stout last year
Nice.
with Fallen Empire, which is like a Mayan style or like Mexican style Imperial Stout. I don't know what the kids are calling it these days, but that's Mexican Imperial Stout. I think is generally the
Like
herald
with peppers and
term.
stuff.
Yeah,
Peppers and
yeah, it's
chocolate.
got peppers, chocolate, vanilla, lactose, the whole everything.
Love it.
Yeah,
Dedicated. Went all in.
but like I really there's definitely there are some styles in there that are just so good. Like if they're done right,
Mm-hmm.
like you can make a 10 to 12% imperial stout that is almost as drinkable as an IPA. Like it is nuts if you do it right. And I really want to hit the point, like those points with these beers at some point. There's a lot of points. Um, but uh, but yeah, like I've been to some breweries where it's like, wow, like I could sit here and continue drinking this, but I really shouldn't. Like
Right.
it's
Getting
super
attached.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of the direction that maybe you'd like to go into a bit more this year and moving
Oh
forward.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you? Yeah, go on, please. Keep going.
Oh, we'll be releasing another Fallen Empire this year, and like I've iterated on the recipe again. I'm just like I was fairly happy with the first landing, which like our first Imperial Stout, I was pretty happy with. But like the second iteration, I think will be even better. It'll just keep getting better, and then probably I don't know, play around with maybe a different brand in that direction somewhere, maybe like more in a porter direction or something like that.
Nice.
I really like those styles, those big, chewy, monstrous stouts are pretty good. It's the middle ground I'm not very interested in.
Right.
I don't know, like the lower ABV stouts. I don't really care about them.
Man, I
Not my
respect
thing.
it. Yeah, man. I totally understand. I think I would probably rather have a 10% stout than a 5 as well. Like it's cool, but
Yeah.
I'd rather have less of a big one than a pint of a smaller one too. I feel you. Are you doing barrel aged stuff, or is this straight up and down?
Yes. Yes. So this year we'll be releasing some of our first barrel aged beers, which I'm
Nice.
super excited about. And actually, that's been occupying a lot of my time over the last month or so.
Sick.
Just figuring out all the logistics because that's a whole new thing, really. We've been aging beer like a fairly simple sort of lambic base in a set of 500-liter puncheons for the last 2 years.
Nice.
Or a year to 2 years. And so the plan is been tasting them often and assessing them, and they're getting ready. They're very close to ready. And blending them with the right fruits and making sure we have the branding to accompany it, creating a whole new sub brand for it, having the website accommodate it to show that information as part of the recipe. All of those things have been occupying my time. So that's sort of the next big step that is taking up my mind space.
I love it though. I mean, that's super cool. Is that something that people can expect this year?
Yeah.
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 Wow. So there's a bunch. Like more big imperial stouts. The first barrel aged like lambic style.
Mm-hmm.
That's some serious shit. I love it. Man, that's super
Yeah.
cool. I mean, that feels, both of those feel like a nice organic extension to the lineup. The way the type of stuff you guys are doing. I'm like, yeah, that aligns for sure. No, it's cool. Like, I feel like the only other thing that could be cool for you guys would be like a pills or something. But like we were saying, let's sort of down the track to do the space.
Yeah, we need another space.
Yeah. Have you
Yeah.
looked? Are you considering that, or have you looked at that, or is it sort of not really on the cards just yet?
It's it's just like I don't want to expand in the direction of volume. I want to expand in the direction of quality. Like I don't think the two are not necessarily mutually exclusive. Let me set that straight. But
Yeah.
like I think that when resources are limited, you do have to sort of choose how you want to go about things. I don't want a monstrous production brewery for Halo. That's not the direction I want. I think it's just like I can't even imagine what being in COVID land would have been like if you were a bigger brewery. It would have been like it's a whole other lifestyle, like and stress level that I'm not really interested in. I didn't get into this to like just manage people or just handle scaling and the business side of things. And like I do like having a good idea of the whole scope of the corporation or the business, you know, and but also not just focusing on the business. Like I want to be a maker first and a businessman second. Like that's you know, like or not at all. So like I think getting back to the original question, the next step would be more in the direction of like a barrel room or a place where there could be one, barrel aging, and two, eventually space for like spontaneous fermentation, like coolship kind of stuff. Yeah. And then having like a dining / sitting area where you could see all of those aging vessels and, you know, get the full sense of like sitting in like an underground cellar. Like that would be the coolest thing. I want that vibe someday in a place that is Halo. But yeah, someday.
Yeah. Hey man, like you move in the right direction. Obviously, you know, you guys. It's not easy to keep something, you know, a brewery growing and going in Ontario specifically. In the last few years is when it's like, you know, really ramped up with the competition. So that already says a lot. And then in the last 12 months, when shit hit the fan and everything's been crazy, to be able to maintain that, you know, obviously like all of those growth plans for everybody for the most part, you know, put on the back burner. There's not really much anybody can do at this point. It's all about just keeping it going, keeping the roof, you know, the roof above the heads and the lights on and keeping things going. But man, I can see, you know, when we get to the light at the end of this nonsense, that could be that's cool. I love it, man. I like those aspirations. I can definitely see that. Yeah, I love it. I'm just super impressed. I'm super impressed with everything. It's fantastic. I always have been in the few that I have had. So now getting to talk to you and get the story, this is great. This is I feel like I closed the circle a little bit. Now, I really appreciate your time, dude. This is awesome, dude. Where can everybody find Halo online?
At halobrewery.com. Yeah, or if you have specific questions about home brewing or whatever, you can email us at info@halobrewery.com. And yeah, we'll get back to you.
Yeah, I love it. Instagram is Halo Brewery.
Instagram at Halo Brewery.
Yeah. I believe Facebook's the same.
Yeah.
And Twitter, all the same. Very, very well done.
We actually don't do Twitter.
You have Twitter? I swear I tagged you. Maybe I didn't.
I mean, we have a Twitter account. We just don't use it.
It's good to have it.
Sort of. Yeah, we'll keep it, but I try and avoid Twitter. I don't like.
No, I feel you.
No,
it's an interesting world. It's my favorite network, but it's like you gotta customize it to how you want it. And it's interesting because I mean I'm out here in Quebec, and obviously my girlfriend's from Toronto. My brother lives in Toronto, so I'm before the pandemic, we were there usually every month, every other month. So I'm super familiar with how both provinces kind of got one foot in each. Toronto or Ontario is all about beer Twitter. That's where a lot of the action happens. But here in Quebec, it's like, I would say 80% of the breweries don't even have a Twitter account for us to tag them when we're posting this stuff. It's like they're into Facebook. It's straight Facebook. It's very interesting how
Instagram. Yeah.
Instagram everywhere is there, but the community where people talk and bitch about things and the drama happens or whatever. In Quebec, it's primarily Facebook. In Ontario, it's primarily Twitter. There's that Canada Crafts Club, whatever it's called, the Facebook group where a lot of Ontario folks find themselves. I know, yeah. You know the one? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. We can all roll our eyes at these guys. But yeah, it's just so funny to me because we also own a social media agency, so we're also super passionate about like everybody just have the name, and you can just sync everything from Instagram and stuff, but just to keep that presence so that people can tag you and discover you, even if you're just sharing the other stuff you're doing elsewhere, just to have it. So I would encourage you to keep it, but just you don't have to do too much, just so it's there. Because I tell the Quebec dudes, like, just let me tag you. I can't even tag you. What if the Ontario people that are following us are more, because there's hardly any Quebec people on Twitter in the beer world. What if they see the post, but then they can't go and find you when they see it? And they're like, it's too hard. I'm not going to go search for them on Instagram. And then lost opportunity because they might want to, although people aren't, you know what I'm saying? It's those small things. It's just like every opportunity, frictionless, make people, I don't want to preach social media actually, but yeah, it's an interesting way to do it. But you guys are everywhere, which is good. Which I appreciate. Do you know what we need to do? We need to do the thumbnail for YouTube. I do it while we're live. So basically, you want to hold up. I'm just going to take basically a screenshot. You want to hold up a can or a bottle or something. There we go. Oh yeah, pour that in there. Get that fresh. Yes. Look at it. It's gorgeous. Yeah, get it all in there. All right. There we go. Ready? Got it. Beautiful. I'm going to wrap this up. Stick around on the call into the end, and we'll wrap it up properly. But Callum, appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. This has been genuinely awesome. It's great to hear the story. Beers are phenomenal. You're a champion. Appreciate you. Everybody, thank you for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you know when the new news drops. Follow us on social media at BAOS Podcast, and check out the long-form audio so you can hear legendary individuals like Callum talk about craft beer. Every week we'll be back. We're actually got a double episode next week, Thursday 9 p.m., Friday 9 p.m. Tune in, guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.
Thanks.
Boom. All right.
Thanks for having me.
Legend, man. Appreciate it. Everyone on the live, thank you so much. Montreal Beer Page, Philippe, anyone else watching, appreciate y'all. We'll see you Thursday 9 p.m., Friday 9 p.m. We'll see you then. Callum, stick around for a sec. Peace.